I no longer believe that we can save the world. It's the primary message of a book I started to read shortly after the elections in 2016. It's called So Far From Home, and the author is Margaret Wheatley, pictured here. And she writes, "Powerful dynamics have been set in motion that cannot be stopped. Greed, self-interest, coercive power. They're destroying the very life force of this planet. I don't know whether such destruction is intentional or not, but I observe it happening everywhere." She continued, "We have to realize that we're exhausted because we're struggling to accomplish what can never be accomplished, and then blaming ourselves and each other for our failures." She wrote, "My intention is that we will do our work with more delight and confidence, even as we understand that it won't turn this world around." That was a great relief to me. And when I brought it to coffee hour, this idea that, oh my God, no matter how high we lob it and go back and forth, we're going to be exhausted. We can stop trying to improve somebody else's game and instead just work on our own game. I got so excited, and I spoke to some of you at coffee hour. And then I watched you quickly change the subject. And I realized that I hadn't clearly communicated what I hope to communicate to you now. Her book isn't an invitation to give up all hope. It's not an invitation to despair. It's an invitation to let ourselves off the hook for saving the world, for turning it around. That's ridiculous. It's about giving up the hope, the idea that that's what we're supposed to do, and we will work at it for justice until we reign in this new world. We need a different understanding of what our role is when we're doing justice work. And last winter, over 500 Unitarian Universalist ministers gathered together in Florida for the Florida right now. Doesn't that sound great? Last year, I was there. So was Reverend Jen. We gathered together at Center Institute, a time of spiritual deepening and learning with one another. And in worship, we heard the voice of this woman, the Reverend Marisol Caballero. She is a young, queer, Latina, Unitarian Universalist minister. And she said this: "Having grown up UU, I've been singing some of our hymns my whole life. I've been singing 'Wake Now My Senses' longer than most songs in my life." And here are a few verses of the song if you aren't familiar. "Wake now, compassion, give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the wide sky. Take as your neighbor both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end. Wake now, my conscience, with justice thy guide. Join with all people whose rights are denied. Take not for granted a privileged place. God's love embraces the whole human race." Now she said, I love these songs, and I do too. And as someone who was new to Unitarian Universalism, she said it was just so refreshing, so exciting when she was a teenager and her family went, that there was a place that held values like she held. And yet, she says, today, though, when she sings this, what she hears is as follows. She says, "I notice that the calls to justice-centered action, imagine that the suffering filling the night sky, are decidedly not coming from within the present company assembled in any UU space I'm in that is not explicitly people of color. In other words, the call, my friends, is not coming from inside the house. As a battle-scarred adult," she says, "the song develops this new layer, an undeniable patina that heavy-handedly hints of white paternalism." Man, we do that all over in our hymns, all over the place, even in songs I've selected for today. It's incredibly difficult to find songs that don't have this kind of savior role glorified in them. And I enjoy many of the songs. Over time, they've come to be meaningful to me, to the people I've sung them with. But I also cringe sometimes at even the words we've revised from other traditions. I don't think we've gone far enough. We sing, "We'll build a land where we bind up the broken. We'll bring good tidings to all the afflicted. Come build a land where brothers and sisters, anointed by God, may then create peace." Oh my God. I can't help but every time we sing that, imagine the ancestors of my white European settlers who were here and justified the brutal onslaught and genocide and dehumanization of indigenous people, of millions and millions of indigenous people to manifest their destiny as God had ordained. And I know some of you know how powerful words are because you don't sing the songs or read anything that is given to you, right? I know I didn't when I first came to a Unitarian Universalist church. I would read the words and be like, I don't know what these people are going to ask me to say. I'm not willing to say that. Words are powerful. We speak them and we pour life into their shape. And the images conjured by many of our lyrics and the vision for justice that's shaped by these words encourage us to keep playing that darn game. And the words are flat. They're two-dimensional. They're exhausting. They're paternalistic. They're patriarchal. They're colonizing, even as they're outdated scientifically, and they're incongruent with our theology and faith. And yet, we still sing them, and too often we measure our success in our justice work or in our family lives or really anywhere by them. Our world, our life, and our societies are not so simple. It's not so simple as just improving someone else's game and then, wow, we can fix that problem, as if Wheatley critiques this idea that we can look at problems and social problems as if it's a puzzle. And she described going to workshops where you go and your name tag is made on a puzzle piece. Have you been to these conferences? I have, right? I've probably even made them. And the idea that, like, if we each do our little piece, then we can put together a different picture or solve this puzzle, as if it's a flat, two-dimensional world that we're dealing with, when instead, life is emergent rather than incremental. Social issues are emergent rather than incremental. And emergent means that systems create results that do not reside in any one particular component of that system. Human consciousness is an example. Neurobiologists can't pinpoint the neuron that creates or the set of relationships that create human consciousness. We can't sequence their interactions. They're emergent. They're these relationships of interdependent interactions and connections, and this complexity within even our body for those connections to be, I mean, it's just, if you think about what it takes to create human consciousness, our minds are blown, right? Wheatley questions this, and she says, it's like we think about that we somehow can break down that the puzzle, we equate the puzzle, the picture that we're all looking at, with the pieces sitting in the box. When emergent means that it's not just the sequencing, it is a flurry of irresolvable life. She says, the global culture, with all its tragedies and injustices, is an emergent phenomenon. Once something is, we can't just work backward to change it. We have to accept this terrifying fact that we will not change what has emerged. We can't even improve our partner's tennis game. How are we going to take apart and try to fix something like this? Instead, we can hold our work differently and not measure our success by undoing and solving and fixing. And I love how clearly the tennis match showed how painfully clear the tennis match showed that holding our work in that way, how it does not work. So here's an example. I love that story. It comes from Ed Friedman. He's a rabbi. He was a teacher of family systems theory. And I love that that story explains the use of triangles, right? So here we have Harry, and here we have his husband, and here we have tennis. Harry's in relationship with his husband, and Harry is in relationship with tennis. But you'll notice Harry doesn't get to touch the side where his husband is connected to tennis, is he? No. But did that stop Harry? No. Does it stop any of us sometimes? No, it doesn't. Sometimes we realize we're hitting our head against the wall and we stop, try something new. But anytime we try to control the side of the triangle that we aren't connected to, we will stress ourselves out. And I share this with justice groups in our church, the triangle. When they feel badly that more people aren't getting involved and they feel like we're failing somehow because we haven't conveyed the message to the congregation that they're all going to show up and engage in the things that I care about, because it is fundamentally wrong what is happening. Of course we want everyone to care, and of course we want everyone to act. But we're not actually at their tennis matches. We don't know what people are doing. But we feel badly when we define our work by thinking we have to motivate them. If we were to put, I'm a justice person in the congregation, and here's you, and here's this issue, and I'm trying to change your relationship over here, but I don't touch it. I just get exhausted. We can work on our issues. I can go up to the State House. I can talk to my representatives. I can go share my voice all the time, right? And I can come and I can talk to you about it, but I can't control whether you go up the hill or not. But I can build my relationship with you, and I can call you or write you and invite you to come with me. And because I know you and I know the things you care about, I can invite you to come to act on the things that you care about with me. We talk all the time how the work we do is invitation, not recruiting. Recruiting is exhausting. Recruiting is doing that tennis game, right? Trying to get other people to do something. That's not what we do. We do inviting. And we do this around social issues, and so for me, the triangle is a great pastoral tool with justice groups, but it also applies to just every day in our lives, doesn't it? The ways we try to influence how our loved ones eat. Even the way they chew, right? How they cook, how they do the dishes, where they load the dishes, how they deal or don't deal with their health issues in just the right way. We feel responsible for their issues, right? There's something I'm supposed to do about your backhand. We feel responsible sometimes, not even just for the people that we love and know really well, but sometimes we feel responsible for people we've just met. Sometimes I've heard people share that they have a sense of responsibility when they're volunteering with Family Promise and a family is staying here and they see the way a parent and a child are interacting, and they feel like, I have to do something to stop this because what's happening isn't okay. And that's a dangerous moment when we feel responsible for the side of the triangle that we don't touch. It's a dangerous moment because not only do we waste our energy, but we also can be disrespectful and arrogant even. And we can diminish the worth and dignity of others that we're committed to in this faith, to affirming. We have to stay off of the sides that are not ours. And it's a dangerous moment. It's a dangerous moment when we think we're responsible for someone else. We're not responsible for people. We're responsible to them. And this is a powerful shift. Imagine if our government shifted the conversation right now from being responsible for building a wall to shut down the border. If it shifted from being responsible for every person who comes in or out, instead to responding to the needs of the people who are coming to the border, or the underlying causes that we've helped generate that have brought them here. But instead, supporters of the wall are simplifying all of these intersecting history of triangles, this emergent, massive glob of dynamic life and history, down to this one simple narrative of a triangle. that is the government, migrants, and our borders. And wall supporters, they want to control the side of government that they don't touch. They're thinking, okay, I can be in relationship with the migrants, and I can be in touch with the wall. So let's build this wall in such a way that they couldn't possibly do anything. Well, you can focus on building your wall, and you can focus on your relationship with migrants, but you don't get to control their creativity and ingenuity and how they engage with your wall, right? And our government is showing the insanity of trying to control the side of the triangle that you don't touch. The insanity of trying to control others. The insanity that justifies abducting children and hiding them from their parents. Sending them to different countries than where their parents are. It's an insanity that justifies tear gas and violence. And in some cases, neglect and abuse that has led to the death of people who are in the custody of the hands of our government. We're witnessing what happens when our government is trying to control the side in such a way that they shut it down. They shut down the government. They're having a temper tantrum. It's a sign of the increasing stress of white supremacy as it tries to control black and brown bodies on our borders. The wall is not about border security. The wall is an illusion, just as controlling other people is an illusion. And we are watching white supremacy try to squeeze the life out of this triangle so that they can just get out of relationship with brown and black people. Well, guess what? You're in this we are all in this together, no matter how we feel about it. There is no escape from the interconnections of life. No way out of the triangle. So how are we going to live in our triangles? Now, it's really easy to say, well, that's insane, what people are trying to do. But I can't tell you how many times and in the beginning of the service, when I ask, how do you feel when you listen to the news or think about the news? And we're like, ugh. It's really hard to listen to the news, right? Because the people are reporting just on the side we don't touch. And I sit there going, what am I supposed to do now? And that is where we can find a possibility for survival. That is where we come back to find a possibility for sanity in an insane world. Sanity that doesn't rely on what other people are doing, but sanity that comes from acting in ways aligned with what we know to be true and what we hold sacred. Aligned with our faith in the worth of all people. We can act with hope that this does indeed matter. Hope defined by Václav Havel, that hope is not a conviction that something will turn out well. It's not a conviction that something will turn out, but hope is the certainty that something makes sense, regardless of how it turns out. May we be people of possibility, people who, as Wheatley says, have cheerfully shifted from being a savior, exhausting ourselves, running back and forth, to becoming spiritual warriors, people who confidently and with delight in our work, who can renew and source our energy from the experience that we have with this mystery, the messiness, the complexity, and irresolvable nature of life. May we give up hope of saving the insanely beautiful mess and instead source strength from it and be warriors who love it and one another.